Hello, my fellow readers. This is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction reading. As always, a link to this story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. Now, how is everyone doing? It's been a while. Basically, what's been happening is before I actually get into the story, I at least want to mention that I haven't been able to update, mainly because of work and all that junk. Like it's become very hard to do it because everyone's hours, well, the store hours have been cut back, and I've been working like all day shifts, like nonstop, because I usually wake up around 10 or 11, and so normally they've been scheduling me for 10, 11, or 12 now, so it's becoming hard to kind of do these videos. And this is actually my first day off in about a week, like literally a week. I I sorry. I'm trying to think what. Oh yeah. So now I have to like do bunches of videos on my days off, but I also have to worry about my mom, who is really not that, does not have the brain because she constantly keeps messing with her money. But that's fine. When I move out and she eventually screws herself over by wasting all her money on useless trinkets and she ends up homeless, who is she gonna blame? Herself. But that's not what I'm talking about. So I am doing a Dark Souls fan fiction. It is called The Battle Between Titans. The Giantdad versus the Wall. The irresistible force meets the immovable object. So before I actually get into the story, I at least want to talk a little bit more about these two things. The Giantdad and the Wall are two memes in the Dark Souls community. The Giantdad is pretty much like kind of unironically like the meme of the entire community, because it actually started as a meme, but then it actually became really popular because of how it worked. So here's a picture of Giantdad. This is this is the legend himself. Yes, it is. He's basically it's basically like a min-max build, like constantly pumping up like stamina and endurance. So that way he tanks everything and he just swings everything. And him and the Wall were both made by a YouTuber named Only Afro. Like just look up the Wall Dark Souls or Giantdad. They'll be like the first videos you find. This guy's insanely popular. I couldn't find an actual picture of Giantdad. I mean, not of the Wall. All I could find was this GIF. Really. Yeah, it's just basically he's just a dick along on Orlando's walls, just blocking people. Said, "Hey, you want to try and cross? You gotta get past the wall." So this is just a more defensive, but this is more an offensive sort of thing. So let's get started. Now that I got the context done, let's get started. And now the first thing on the story is the Wall's theme song. Wow. I don't own the song. So the context behind this song is there was a professional wrestler named Mark Henry. His whole gimmick was he was the world's strongest man, and that's an actual true statement. He won several Giant Man competitions. He still holds strongman records. He was the first person to actually deadlift the Thomas into dumbbell, which is like really hard to grab and lift, and he managed to do it. Not just do it, but deadlift it, so it's like it was even more impressive. He actually broke a chain on live TV, like actually broke it. I'll actually leave a link to that one in the description because that's actually really cool, and I really like that video. And so back around 2007, 2008, they were releasing a CD full of all these theme songs that were going to be for wrestlers, so that way people can listen to their favorite theme. And this was actually supposed to be his theme, but he got injured again. But they released the song anyway. They just left him like somebody's gonna get hurt. I mean by 3-6 Mafia said. Okay, so let's get started. Orlando, the once proud city of the gods, now a desolate and cold city that only the most daring or the retarded of adventurers explore. In fact, as we speak, everyone's favorite Union Bro had been thoroughly pwned by the city's deadly Silver Knights. But the lazy and slow fellow wasn't the only person entering the city for a taste of adventure and challenge. This realm's chosen undead has made her way to the city, and as we speak was already moving across the rafters of the Great Hall, engaging in hilarious and swift battle with the Painting Guardians, and while she engaged in this battle of pure skill, she was no longer alone. From the elevator's entrance, a white fog appears, and after a calm moment, a high pitch heralds the arrival of an invader from another world. The red figure slowly rose from a bowing position to a grand and demanding stance, one which screamed of unrelenting power. This being was all too familiar to the city. His bronze armor was that of the local sentinels of the Forgotten City. His back was home to the great grass crest shield, and in his hands was a weapon of unmatched power and destruction, a +5 Chaos Hander. What made this figure more unique than many others, however, was his mask. A once popular and culturally significant mask of the Father, now carried by only the privileged giants of the world. On the faces of many others, this was but a trinket. A mask which simply eased the burden of heavy equipment. To this giant, this legend, it was his identity. And the world's host felt an eerie chill down her spine as she knew that the legend has arrived. The legend, the father of giants himself, looked around the central walkway, spotting the tailless carcass of a gargoyle, a clear casual from the looks of it. Behind the mask, the legend squinted as he peered into the far distance before him. Nostrils flaring, he smelled the sweet aroma of a scared person, the realm's host. He took a moment to gather his thoughts. Feel the energies flowing through the world, breathing in every soft, delicate taste. And he opened his eyes faster than a flash of light, his mind swinging to action, knowledge firing through his brain like bullets. The host had soiled herself, confirming that she was afraid of the legend. And she smelled like a woman, because of the gracious amounts of perfume and shit. On any other occasion, the legend would invite her, assuming she wasn't fucking ugly, of course. I don't know why that's funny, but that's just randomly funny. Do some hardcore lovemaking, in which he presumed to be the one of the bed of Gwyn's children. But not today. No. This was a day for a hunt. And he already got the smell of his prey flooding his mind. Like a pissed off menstruating giant wolf. What? What? I didn't want that image in my head, thank you. I didn't want to see the image of the Great Wolf Sif pissing blood out of his. Is Sif a boy or a girl? I just realized that. Is Sif a guy or a girl? Huh. I don't know. Who had eaten since last week and is backed up into a corner. He gathered all his rage and roared a mighty battle cry that shattered the ears of even the hollows in the undead asylum. The glass broke from the sheer power of the roar as the ground crumbled from the world-shattering release. If one was to have a scouter, it would have broken, unable to calculate the sheer power he has manifested, because his power is over 9,000! Sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. In a swift subversion of his recent actions, he calmly walks at a snail's pace towards his prey, who recently just made it to the same level as he was. The woman had just finished off another gargoyle when she spotted him, and nearly fell through the stairwell's opening. What was she going to do? She can't fight him. She had to cheese a victory and indirectly defeat him to even hope to survive. The two made eye contact. The legend. Her eyes were blue, were of a soft light shade, and showed her pure soul and naivety to the world, despite enduring all the horror. For the woman, she could make up nothing but pure chaotic rage within the legend's pupils. Not even the kiln of the first flame, in its prime, could ever hope to match the intensity of his eyes' fire. At this moment, the woman realized that he was doing what she had to do. He was giving her a chance to run, and by Gwen's beard, she'll take it. As she stood up and turned, Giantdad took one last look at his prey. She was wearing a set similar to that of the Lord's Blade, an assassin's organization. How she attained a set was beyond him. It made no difference. Using his powerful eyes, those which even the hawk ring couldn't match, he spotted her left hand, and he suspected as much. A dirty casual. A dark wood grain ring and a wolf ring, not the rings of a pro like the legend. Havel's ring and the ring of favor and protection are what he wore. Stamina, endurance, and health. Everything he would ever need. Are you actually quoting the video? All wrapped up in his hands. She also was wielding some eastern blade. He couldn't tell which, nor did he care to know. As she ran, he jumped into the air and made the first strike. One meant to simply scare her, to make her mind flutter and make her an easier target. When he arrived over the other side of the elevator, he made a cutting motion, stopping the blade at his feet and landing a few feet away from his prey, causing a massive dent in the walkway. With minimal fire leakage, it was time to let nature take its course. His target had a daunting task ahead of her. She needed to survive 2 deadly giants, fucking murder sentinels, run through and take care of several asshole demons, before finally crossing a path and having to traverse the Rape Knights. I like the wording. This is so funny. Commonly named so due to the fact that bows forcibly penetrated medieval casuals' rears, causing a great amount of pain, anguish, and trauma to the mind and body. The girl was cute, so he was going to do her a solid and cleave her in half. Of course, when the time came to do so, he was all but hyped for the fresh flay of blood to quell his thirst. Not even if it was her time of the month. He would stop until he thrusted his sword into her stomach, and injecting his sword's fire through her veins until she screamed and melted. Of course, that was too edgy for him, so a simple half-cut would do. He stalked her as she ran up toward the pillar, and he began walking up the bridge. He calmly stomped toward her as the archers stopped firing their bows. Suddenly she ran and made a run for it. By the time he turned that same corner, he was shocked to see her running towards him of all things. Perhaps she wasn't so casual after all. That or she was retarded. Either is fine. He made a massive hefty slash toward her. However, was surprised when she flipped over his sword and continued, like out of one of my Japanese enemies. The pillar was cleaved in half, possibly by the sheer wind power or whatever. The legend didn't question this logic. It was just awesome and made his attempted one-hit kill more dramatic. Pacing and all that shit, you know? However, before he could turn to face his prey, he spotted something different. Something unique. Whatever it was, it must have been the reason she was willing to run towards him of all things. That, she was retarded. The figure before him was wearing the fattest armor imaginable, with weird sissy pant boots and thick leggings. He had a sinister mask and top hat, and kept a giant shield on the back, and was holding the fabled battle shield. Much like the legend, this was too an invader. A rather sinister one at that. If these two beings were any other invader, they were ganging up on the poor lass. They had a numerical advantage and could work together. But the legend was interested in sharing his prey. And the stranger clearly was sharing the same thoughts. It's time for shit to go down. And like a perverted clown... What? He laughed a hearty and demonic laugh before throwing his arms apart in an open challenge to the legend. The father of giants gave this being a heated glare, and the two gave a seemingly distant hug as they shared the same gesture. Well, what is it? Without words, they said the same words. Well, I completely guessed that. Well, what is it? The strange bat fiend then pointed toward the legend and then to the other side of the bridge. Declaring his intent, with a snicker, he proclaimed himself towards the aging giant. You can cheese the archers, you can cheese the gods, but you can never hope to cheese me. Whoa! Who is it that has decided to throw their life? That's like the wrong throw. Throw their life away in a vain hope to challenge me, he said, calmly waiting. The legend frowned and furrowed his eyebrows. although this cannot be seen. The legend did not take such confidence and dismissal lightly. Lifting his mighty Chaos Hander against his shoulders, he said only 3 words. I am Giantdad. Okay, so where was I? I got my mom was being dumb and banging on my door. Where was I? Okay, I was right here. Legend tells of the powerful presence who would call the broken and abandoned Orlando home. Some believe that the wall was Smo's younger brother. Others attest against the undead, who was meant to travel through the city to attain the Lord Vassal. Many undead speak of their experiences with the wall, with only a few able to have survived, or even win. The wall was, in some words, the laziest form of any douchebag could possibly attain, or something like that. Others laughed it off as a very grim reminder of their mission. Mission's danger, and others committed preemptive suicide, even going as far as to indict the wall. The dark-moved servants that would attack him had never returned. And now, 4 people, a peeking Solaire being one watcher, had the privilege of watching 2 legends face off. 2 heralds of the Afro god or goddess, no one really knew. It was a looming battle, as an irresistible force met an immovable object, and any true scholar knew this was the beginning of a chaotic battle that threatened the whole city to its core. The calm maintained for several more minutes as the 2 powers eyed each other down, looking for any signs of weakness, and as quickly as the calm arrived, it was ended by the calling of the legend's own proclamation. Initiate Phase 1. The legend shifted his feet into a combat pose. The wall braced himself for combat, powering up the base cannon. I can't take the story seriously. The legend flexed his muscles, took a strong, authoritative breath, and once more repeated the tugging gesture from earlier. The wall squinted, teeth grinding and flesh contracting. The air heated up massively, as if under fire, and the Silver Knight's archer thrust his sword into his own bridge, hoping to hang on from any possible windbreak. The host could only watch, mouth agape, at the impending battle of titans. Fire! And just like that, chaos broke loose. Stepping back, the legend lunged forth and swung his sword in a wide overhead arc. A wide and powerful gust of wind hailing from this powerful first attack. As the once braced Silver Knight was flung from his safe haven, and up the other forced against the wall. The host was lucky enough to have cover from what remained of the storm pillar, and let out a small, terrifying leap as the air violently sped past her. With a flash of light, the legend's Chaos Hander made contact with the wall shield, and then nothing. What? The legend exclaimed in shock. How is this possible? His first attack always quelled his foes, and yet this wall stood tall, barely having moved from his spot. The legend quickly backstepped and thrust his heavy sword forward, expecting some piercing or crackling, but all that happened was him recoiling from clear deflection of the wall's defense. The legend's eyes widened, his mouth agape in shock. This was impossible. Something was wrong. There was no way this being had the soul power to resist his attack. The legend, he was the father of giants, and was unstoppable. But how? How could he be treated no better than a filthy casual from this man? Even if he was of the same blood as him, hailing and owing his creation to the Afro god. Not all creations are equal. Fucking faggot! The legend roared in anger as he sent several wide and powerful strikes against the wall, only with deflections, no marks, and a laugh at his expense. I will destroy you! I am the legend! I am! The legend was cut off mid-rant by a sudden shield bash from the wall, which knocked him back and cracked his mask. The legend was left standing, of course, but he didn't know what to think. At all this time, he presumed him as disciple of the best, above any casual. They were the ones to destroy the filthy flipping Havel moms. But yet this man kept pushing him back again and again. For the first time in centuries, the legend understood fear, but even then, he knew he had to make himself stronger from him, to empower his will and match it against the wall. The legend went back on the offensive, swinging his sword in several directions, hoping for any results that benefit him. Maybe a crack in the shield, a chink in his opponent's defense, a chance to stunlock even assuming the wall. To those who could not comprehend the sheer power of being spent in the battle, imagine being an ant in the middle of two clashing hurricanes. I don't want to know that. The legend tried a more unique move and tried an uppercut with the sword, only to have it slide up the wall shielded into the air, leaving it open for the shield to back up, and then charge forward with a heavy bash from his shield. The very act itself pushed the legend into the air, and you see clashed against the small, broken down leftovers of the pillar. The small crater crumbled apart as he stood up and faced his adversary once more. This titanic battle continued on for what seemed to be hours, with mixed results, and common occurrences of the wall pushing the legend to his limits. It was with a stroke of pure luck, however, that the legend got a real hit in. During his duel with the wall, he went desperate and swung himself into a circle, his chaos hander nicking the wall's arm before he made a thrust, which hit the wall's wrist. The wall reeled back in pain, curling his lip and using his shield to block the legend's attack. It was at this point that the legend was losing hope. His minor inflictions reminded him his foe was mortal and could die. The two reset their stances and took a small breather. Then they re-engaged. The legend was now trying to put all his power to brute force his way through the wall. With one hefty strike to the left, he managed to push the wall back a decent length. This was it. This was the moment he would win with a stunlock. As the legend moved forward, swinging his sword from left to right, he was surprised once more. Was the wall quickly bashed against him? The legend was on one leg, nearing the pit below, and was more than aware of the fate that was his. But much like anything else, he is too stubborn. Using what left of his energy, the legend swung his sword again, holding back and refining some of it for a clear but strong stab into the bridge, and then held on for dear life. A day. Talking like this is actually irritating my throat. But with a story like this, it demands some grandeur, eloquence. As expected, the wall slammed against him again, forcing the legend to his knees. No holding onto the blade, with some cuts to his gloves, the legend prepared to try and get under the wall's defenses to win. But he was too slow. That, or the wall was surprisingly too fast. The wall sneered and sent the shield down onto the legend, and with a thunderous boom, a clank of metal, and the sound of broken bones, he slammed the legend onto the ground. All the people watching were like fish out of water, and they stayed like that. The calm breeze returned as the legend was seemingly defeated, and the whole sculpted as the wall turned his attention to her. Much like earlier, he pointed at her, and then the abyss below. This was the end for the host. It was all over. She didn't know if she could take this anymore. Suddenly, the wall's right leg was held onto by the legend, who started to pull himself up. The wall forced his leg back and stepped away a bit, looking at the legend with contempt. His foe now stood proudly and defiantly against him, holding his Chaos Hunter in one hand. The wall growled, and before he could make his move, the change in the air caught him first. Clouds began to form on the city, and not even Gwendolyn's illusions could be maintained. Thunder and lightning was spreading throughout the now darkened Orlando, and like an angry Saiyan, my bad. The legend roared once more as the breeze floated. Pillars were crushed, and rising soul power flooded his veins and very being. The wall made a mistake that day. He made the legend angry, and he wouldn't like the legend when he is angry. The legend was down, but he couldn't accept defeat. Not to some cheap, casual faggot, no. He was the legend! Father of giants. Dammit, he was Major League incarnate. And he won't be down. When he grabbed the wall's leg, it was he who knew that the fight came to his advantage. He got back up, and with a single declaration, he spilled his foe's fate. Time to pwn a bitch! Phase 2 commenced like a flash of light. The legend swept his Chaos Hander out the wall, causing a small gorge into it and pushing him back quickly. This very act shook the wall to his core. The legend followed this up with a quick thrust, which not only pierced the wall's impenetrable defense, but made contact with his own armor. The legend did not stop. Oh no, he did not. Charging forward, the legend made contact against the wall and broke through, the force shaking the remaining archer into his death and forcing the peeping Knight Solaire to hide and cover. Breaking through the wall, managed to push the legend off, and he looked at the new terrain. He was now out of his element and had to retreat. The wall ran from the room and toward the stairs, making it halfway before turning to see the enraged Giantdad. His teeth clenched. He decided to gain a distraction as he escaped. I'll give up 10,000 souls to whoever slays this heathen. With that, a door was broken down, and 3 knights charged at the lessons, jumping in the air, weapons primed to kill their target. The legend braced himself against their attack, and swung his sword horizontally. Faster than the eye could see, all 3 knights were cleaved in half, just above their waist, the armor folding and breaking as if it was paper. Their wet corpses faded, leaving behind items for anyone to gather. The legend smirked and made his way toward the stairs, but he was interrupted by the shattering of bricks as the stone walls and ceiling broke down to reveal another challenger, a Titanite demon. The legend snorted and with a faint breath lunged toward the demon, claiming the annoying bastard in two and leaving a sharp cavern into the floor. In all the excitement of poning noobs, the legend didn't realize he was about to be stabbed in the back by a silver knight. However, the knight was swiftly given a test of its own medicine as it was stabbed back by the host, getting the legend's attention momentarily. The legend swiftly turned around to see the host and her dirty work. The two looked at each other, questioning each other. She nodded, and started to take this time to loot the bodies of the legend's victims. And the legend himself started running through the open door at the far side of the room, climbing up the stairs, and toward the destination of the cathedral's roof. Oh, that's nice. The host and the host and the legend getting along. Oh, that's actually really nice. Thunder and lightning continued to sing a chorus as the battle was reaching its crescendo. Downpour collided with the bricks of the roof as the wall stood against one of 3 doorways. Now no longer with just one shield. No, he had 2 Havel shields. The legend appeared from one of the other paths and stalked towards his enemy. The two, sizing each other once more. It would take a lightsaber to cut through the tension between these two, and that would take a while. The 2 sides put all their weight into the ground they stood on, shifting in a battle stance. As lightning hit between them, it signaled the duel to continue. Like an angry army, they roared and charged at each other, the host taking this time to slip past to help a friend nearby. Onion bro, bruh. Onion bro, duh. To any mere mortal, the fight would be impossible to track, as the wall and legend traded blows and blocked each other's attacks with pure, ruthless aggression and skill. The wall jumped above the legend, spinning around and bringing his 2 shields down. This attack was blocked by the legend, who held his short sword at length and blocked it through pure strength, no dexterity required. Lightning and thunder continued to drown out the combatants and their thoughts, the wet rain pounding and pouring off their bodies as the 2 warriors clashed again and again, each blow causing an explosion larger than any pink-haired mage could hope to muster. Why, even the stray demon and his stupid fucking face would have felt inadequate with his power and sheer amount of explosive spam. Each blow was seemingly more powerful, yet more refined than an atom bomb. This was a battle between 2 gods, not men. And then Gwen's like looking up at them and said, "But I'm a god." "No, you're not. Hold your face, oh noob." The 2 collided with incomprehensible strength as they pushed against each other, each engagement increasing in the amount of ridiculous and terror. The 2 departed to the farthest ends of the roof, and as the rain picked up, the legend and wall ran towards each other, their intent on finishing the battle. As their stride continued, they both pushed themselves off the ground toward each other, and then, as if on purpose, they clashed just as the flash of lightning blurred the winner, and then fell back to the ground on opposite sides. They stood there, calm, collected, waiting for the other to give in. Who was the one to go down? It was the wall, who always opened up. Blood spat out from his body, despite the fact it should have been cauterized. Much like the pillar, it must have been a universal rule of cool. The wall breathed heavily after this attack, and took his time to stay focused. He was bleeding, and burnt badly. He assumed the legend was bruised heavily too. As an invader, they couldn't heal, and so they were on borrowed time from all their injuries. This fight couldn't go on for much longer. The wall gained his strength, and looked back toward the approaching legend. He snarled as they collided in battle once more. Shield bashes were dodged. Short swings were blocked. Cratering, clipping, and even shattering broke through both sides. It has reached the point where even their low drowned out the thunder, and their sheer momentum and strikes, brighter than the lightning, someone had to give. Only one of these two titans could stand tall in the end. As they separated, the wall kept one shield up and swung his other at the legend. Like glorious Nippon wink, the legend cleaved the shield in half, but instead of a bitch-ass katana, he was using a weapon worthy of praise, a Chaos Hander. The shield was cut in half, and the legend sent a thunderous kick to the wall, pushing back. Before the wall could recover, the legend was already collided once more, cutting off the now free arm of the wall and kicking him in the nuts. If the wall has any. The wall fell to the ground, pain stinging his legend as his flesh burnt from his cut. How could he have been defeated? Everything was going to plan. He could have won. Were the legends true? Can you never truly defeat the father of giants in combat? The wall was confused and even horrified at how swiftly he was pushed back against the legend. This was a battle that would go down in history. He just couldn't understand why. Why did it have to escalate this far? It dawned on him. He was already defeated the moment this fight left the bridge. He was being toyed with. As the rain began to calm down and the weather became mellow, the wall laughed in a defeated but still clouded way. The legend walked up to the wall and looked down on him, judging the wall with contempt and peering into his soul. The wall bowed in defeat, laughing towards his better, knowing he failed. He didn't bother looking up, but as the rain halted, he sighed and brought himself to bear the question. Why did you go after me? I was already defeated. You did it. You cheesed the wall and proved to be my better. Why did you continue? Why persist? The legend continued to look down at him harshly. He then lifted his sword, swinging it around to where the blade pointed down. Its destination, the wall's neck. Because you put me down, and I had to get up and pwn you. That is who I am. And you're just a fucking casual. I'm unstoppable, no matter what you do. No what you try, you can never win, because the legend never dies! With this, the legend brought his sword down and killed the wall, leaving nothing but a red blood stain in the body's wake. The legend brought the sword back and put it at rest upon his shoulders. He turned around to see the host, now armed with a fully upgraded silver knight sword, looking at him, nervously looking between him and back to where she came. You can take it. The fight was enough to last me a while here, at least for invasions. The legend said as the woman walked up and quickly snatched away the souls in humanity. She looked up at him, and this time saw nothing but a calm, serene blood ocean in his soul. They looked at each other for several minutes before she nodded and turned away back where she came. The legend then took it upon himself to leave her realm and return home. It was an hour in her own realm after these events. The female undead tried defeating the bosses several times with no help before forcing herself to accept help from anybody. As she waited patiently near the bonfire of the once broken room, her summon appeared and answered her calls for help, and she raised an eyebrow in shock. It was the legend, and he had green moss. I came here to fuck bitches and smoke some weed. Want to help calm your nerves? She nodded and was promptly carried off to a bedroom upstairs, where she was greeted with a beautiful bed and somehow strange equipment brought in from who knows where, Possibly the stuff was for that weed shit he was talking about. The female undead shrugged and grabbed some Mary Jane as she and the legend partied like it was the day after the city's founding. It was, to say the least, the best experience she ever had her entire life. And she would never forget what the currently very jolly foul-mouthed giant said to her. Smoke weed every day! After the sex and drugs and gracious amounts of food, she, with the added help of Solaire and with the power of weed, defeated Ornstein and Smell, of course. Of course, it was Ornstein and Smell. The legend left, hoping he fathered yet another child, one who would carry the mantle of being a legend like himself. And she attained the Lord Vessel, and was no longer plagued by the horrid wall. Oh, and then like a couple of lyrics from Ken Ashcroft. That is the story. The one complaint I have to level at the story is you kept misspelling casual. Like, the way Giantdad spells it is Casul, but you spell it the normal way. If you're going to do the Giantdad character, right, you gotta do his grammar. You did it with every other word except for casual for some reason. I don't know why, but you did. That being said, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5. This is just so ridiculously epic. I don't know what not to call it. This is a fantasy story. It's a fantasy story. I don't know what not to call it. A fantasy humor, fantasy adventure, fantasy epic, or just something. It's literally just the Giantdad being the Giantdad. The great mean king of Dark Souls owning some noobs. This was the single most epic thing I've ever read. What 163? You have my respects. This is just the single most epic thing ever. Just fix the word casual, clear up the grammar errors. That's it. You're done. And even then, I still give this a 5 out of 5. I give this a 6 out of 5 if I had a chance, because the story is just that epic, with just the overly ridiculousness of the whole thing. I also really like the little touch of the little subplot with the chosen undead. Like, she's watching these things like, I want my stuff. Can I have my stuff? And then when the Giantdad wins, he's like, yeah, you can have your stuff. I won't kill you. And even then, like the whole weed thing was kind of makes sense if you actually watch the Giantdad video, because in that video where they're talking like the build, they actually like it has like a little. The thumbnail actually had like a thing of like the Giantdad smoking some weed and like Snoop Dogg's dancing, with his arm thing. 5 out of 5. This is like the single most ridiculous story I've read. Well, one of them, but the story needs more reviews. We need more reviews of the story. I want every one of my subscribers, all you fellow readers, read this story, review this guy, praise him for everything, and well, everything. Just the story is just too epic for words. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.